Well, hello, and a very, very happy new year to you. Welcome to 2025. Uh, I hate to worry, but it's the middle of January, so the year is slipping by already. We've got Christmas done and dusted. New Year has come and gone. Had the family for New Year, had a great time over New Year. And then all of a sudden, we've got into January. The shoulder has cleared up, so the shoulder is back working again. Managed to put my back out, which is great. So I've had a week in bed with my back put out, and then here we are, middle of January, and I'm thinking I need to talk to you guys because I haven't done that for yonks. So hello, how you doing? All right, how you getting on? Not so bad, not so bad. Let's talk a little bit about Yarslow and what's going to happen with this channel in 2025 because just between New Year and being laid up, I got to a point where Yarslow, in terms of construction, was, dare I say this out loud, finished. I put a very small F in front of that. And I've done all the construction work, all the things I wanted to do, like the loco yards at Yarslow and Trinity Square, like the rooms at the Trinity Square, a bit of platform furniture. I had some bits and beaks to do in and around Yarslow. All those jobs have been done, and to all intents and purposes, the layout is essentially finished. Somebody walking in the room isn't going to see something and go, oh, he hasn't finished that yet. Now, there are some things that I still need to do. There are four big projects. The first one I've been going on about for yonks, and that is signals. I've never had working semaphore signals on any layout I've ever owned. So this one, Trinity Square's got its colour lights. I've got a couple of daypole signals that are going to do me for Butterbump. But Yarslow, with its junction signals and its multiple starters, does really need to get itself sorted out. I've made great progress in getting my head around where I think I'm going, but I need to get the signals project done. The second one, less exciting, but more for comfort. You'll know recently we put some curtaining around the layout to hide all the junk that's stored underneath. Well, I'm going to put some carpet tiles on the floor. I have one carpet tile at the moment, just as a sample, and it's amazing how much more comfortable it is standing on that one carpet tile than it is standing on the floor of the shed, which is essentially a treated chipboard with a vinyl surface. Much more comfortable on carpet, so that's something I'm going to get along and get done. The third thing is weathering. Now, you may recall from about 30 years ago, on the old layout, in the old Yarslow layout down in London, I did a weathering project. At the time I had about 150 vans and vehicles, and it wasn't that difficult to go through with a weathering spray and put all sorts of different bits and beaks on, and they all looked really lovely. There are now over 740 vehicles, locomotives and coaches and wagons, all those vehicles on the layout, and a great number of them, which have been bought in relatively new, aren't weathered, and they need to be weathered. And it doesn't mean I'm just going to give them a quick splat spray with a track grime out of the airbrush. They need to be properly weathered. Now, clearly that's not going to take me a weekend. It's going to take me a bit of time. But in terms of maintenance, I've been going through and doing one train at a time. So what I shall do is to do one train at a time in terms of weathering. I have started that project. I did a little practice with the airbrush, get my eye back in, and I've worked my way through a couple of trains, and I shall carry on doing that. I haven't even looked at engines. That's something I will do when I've had a lot more practice, but weathering is a project which must get done. And the last one, if you look around here at Trinity Square, you'll notice there are no chimneys. Sometimes there's chimneys and no pots, sometimes there's no chimneys at all. So chimneys and chimney pots is a major project here. I've done the ones on the station building and they look really lovely, so I know what it's going to look like when it's finished. I've just got to get round to doing it. In some cases I need to build the stacks. So these buildings here at Trinity Square on the main road, Bridge Street I think we call this, they've got no stacks at all. So I need to build the stacks and then add the pots on the top. One or two other buildings have got stacks but do need the pots doing. I've got the pots. I bought some 3D print and some resin cast pots at various shows. So I've got all the pots. It's just a case of getting around and doing it. And the last project, which I am very well advanced into, and I'm going to talk about a little bit further in a minute, is the timetable. Now, I put a video out in May 24 discussing really the philosophy behind the timetable. And if you look at that video, you'll find there's information on the fact that it's actually a sequence, not a timetable. How we deal with control, how the operators work and where they all are, what the timetable sets out to achieve, the difference between the active trains and the eye candy trains. And then I went into a little bit of detail about the fact that every day is different and there's some kind of rotation process going on with the trains to make each day and each operating session different from the last one. So if I get the timetable nailed and I get those other 4 projects done, apart from wanting a few more trees around the place, which I can do in odds and bits, and my wife keeps persuading me to try and paint some clouds, discover my inner Bob Ross, which I'm not so sure I've got, but I'll have a practice, as I always do, see what I can come up with. That's all that I need to do. I love that. All I need to do. So let's get into a bit more detail about the timetable. And if you come along to Yarslow and you want to operate as part of the operating team, what are you facing? What are you up against? Well, okay, let me start with a few basics, some of which I may have covered before, just as a recap to give you a bit of context. And then let me give you a bit of detail about how the timetable works. First and foremost, it's a sequence, not a timetable. That has the advantage that if I get to a certain point in the day and I want to stop, I can just stop at, say, train 45. And the next time I go in the shed and I want to operate, I just start again with train 46. That's quite simple. It also takes away the pressure that the clock is ticking. I don't need pressure, it's a hobby. It's meant to be a bit of fun. Secondly, the timetable itself shows a sample of trains that will appear around the layout at different times of the day. Doesn't show every single train that would run. Now that means that, for argument's sake, here at Trinity Square, there is a bit of a flurry of suburban trains first thing to bring everybody into work. There's a few throughout the day, and then there's a flurry of trains at about 5 o'clock on the way home. Now, I talk about 9 o'clock and 5 o'clock. I should say that although we have a sequence, the trains do have times, because the 2:30 stopping passenger train sounds better than train number 45. The second thing is that the trains are divided into 2. They are the active trains. They're the ones that the operators need to do something with. So that could be a stopping passenger train. It could be a terminating passenger train in the case of Trinity Square. It could be a stopping freight train. It could be the van's trip or the parcels or something else. So something somebody has got to do with. And then there are the passive trains, or the eye candy. There's about 38 of these in the loops. And these are the trains that simply go round the layout, running round and round, while you're doing that bit of shunting or running around that terminating passenger train, or whatever it happens to be. So coal trains, freight trains, express trains, they get set on their way on the up or the down main, and they just scoot round the layout looking pretty whilst we do something else. The other major point is that if you come and operate here at Yarslow, then however many times you come, the operating sequence will never be the same twice. And I can guarantee that. Let me explain. A process that I use a lot on the layout is called rotation. And that is where parts or all of a train are rotated round, so that today we deal with the first rotation, tomorrow we deal with the second, and then the third, and so on. The easiest way of explaining that is perhaps to look here at the parcels train that comes from storage. It goes around the main line through Yarslow, where it stops to drop off, and it ends up at Trinity Square. Now there are 4 rotations on the parcels train. The parcels train is actually made up of a core of vehicles. In this case, the core of vehicles is this BG, the general utility van, the CCTV, and this other Southern general utility van. So those 4 vehicles are part of the train every day. Added to the train every day is one of 4 different vehicles. So on day 1, called rotation A, we've got added this Stania BG, and on day 2 we've got this Mark 1 BG. On day 3 we've got this old Gresley BG, this lovely Ian Kirk kit. And on day 4, if I come over to Trinity Square, I've got this Southern BG, which you'll notice starts here at Trinity Square. So the rotation is quite simple with the parcels train. The core plus addition A will arrive today. The D coach, this Southern BG, will leave with the core, leaving coach A parked here in its place. Tomorrow the core will arrive with coach B, that's that Western B Mark 1 BG, and it will depart with the core and train A, that's this Stania, and so on. So it rotates around every 4 trains. It goes through the cycle and comes back to the beginning. Now, on a very similar but slightly different note, the Vans train, the Vans trip that comes in to Trinity Square has 5 rotations. This is slightly different, and there are 5 groups here. You can see when the train arrives, it will arrive with 2 groups. It will depart with 2 of the 3 groups that are already here. Tomorrow those 2 groups will come back as part of the train. It will depart with 2 more groups. So you can see there is a rotation around there, with wagons parked in the platforms, wagons parked in the central siding here, and different vehicles, different combinations of groups A, B, C and D arriving each day. And to help out the operator here at Trinity Square, he's got a couple of little cue cards showing here the vans and the parcel rotation vehicles, and these are the instructions for the vans rotation. So you can see on day 1 that groups D, E and A are at Trinity Square. The train will arrive bringing in groups B and C. It will depart with D and E, leaving A, B and C behind. And you can see there are 5 rotations required to get back to the start. So every 5 operating sessions this sequence repeats. Now, if you're anything of a mathematician, you'll realise that with 4 parcels rotations and 5 vans rotations, you need to run the layout 20 days or 20 operating sessions before this process starts to repeat itself. So if you come 20 times, you'll get 20 different variations of vans and parcels. Now I'm going to throw in another rotation as well now, and this is something which I've covered before about the old layout, but I'll go into again here just to explain. And that is that the stopping freight train is not in effect one bundle of wagons. It's made up of a number of groups of wagons. And again, there's a little cue card here that explains which groups contain which wagons. And a train will arrive, the main stopping freight train will arrive from Northborough to Yarslow, carrying about 6 or 7 of these groups. It will leave 2 of them, collect 2 of them, but between its arrival and its departure, 2 groups will go up to the branch and come back, and the stopping pick-up goods train from Withney will bring a group in and take another group away. So there's a rotation of vehicles. Incidentally, those that are going up the branch, a group will always be left at Blowick Lane on the way up the branch, and a group will be left at Butterbump and Mumby coming back. And of course, if a group is left, a group is collected. And this little cue card explains that for the various trains, the pick-up goods trains, that's the one arriving, the one up the branch, returning from the branch to and from Wisney, and then departing up the main line. This explains what groups they take and what they leave. On the cue card here for the various vehicles in each of the groups, you'll see there is some colours. The colours are coal wagons, and you'll see that the yellow ones are unloaded at Yarslow. That means that the loads in these coal wagons are in fact removable, and when a particular vehicle, let's take the Group 6 vehicle, this 16-ton open, when it arrives it's shunted into Yarslow's coal siding and the load is then removed. However, if we go to Group 17, we see that we've got an unfitted 7-plank vehicle here. Well, that doesn't get unloaded until it goes to Blowick Lane, so it will sit at Yarslow until it goes up the branch. When it gets to Blowick Lane, the load will be removed. And the green ones are wagons who have their loads removed at Highmarsh. There's nothing worse than seeing a loaded coal wagon coming down the branch. It wouldn't load up with coal at the branch. There's no mine or pit up there, so it would always come back empty. So this system allows us to run loaded and empty coal wagons realistically. But more importantly, you need to run through 26 sequences of this daily use of stopping pickup goods trains before the system repeats itself. Now finally, coming back to the timetable itself, there are written into the timetable a number of paths where optional trains can run, and the optional trains are the ones that sit here on the cartridge. So if we're running a weekday timetable, and you'll know from the earlier video that we run weekday, weekday, Saturday, Sunday, weekday, Saturday, Sunday, and so on and so forth. If we're running the weekday options, there are 9 variations as to which of these cartridge trains run on any day of the week. Again, there's a cue card. This is for the operator. It's set at the moment to week 1, Saturday 1, Sunday 1, because we're at the start of the whole cycle. So on W1 you see we've got the milk train running today. Tomorrow will be weekday 2, we run the boys train, boys schools train. Then we run a Saturday service, so we'll have the horses running. And then on Sunday we've got a pigeon special and an engineers train. And the numbers that appear beside the trains here on this cue card are the paths, the sequence numbers of the trains that these services are going to occupy. Now you'll see with 9 weekday and 7 Saturdays and 11 Sunday options that this sequence would need 693 rotations in order to repeat itself. So now I can explain to you that with this 693 rotations, 4 parcels, 5 vans and 26 stopping freight rotations, I would need to operate this layout in excess of 360,000 days before exactly the same trains run again. Now, I would love to be running this layout for 360,000 operating days. Something tells me I'm not going to live that long, so I can guarantee that anybody who comes to this layout, even if you're a frequent visitor, you are never going to run the same services twice. So why have I done all that? Well, when I first started building this layout 43 months ago and started designing it about 5 years ago, I had 2 overriding principles. I wanted variety of traffic and variety of operation. Well, there are 55 trains on this layout, which I think in anybody's book counts as variety of traffic. And I need to operate the layout 360,000 odd times before the sequences start to repeat, which I would suggest is variety of operation. So for me, that's 2 massive ticks. And who controls it all and who holds it all together? Well, of course, it's the big fat controller, isn't it? It's me. It's the guy who is going to sit during the operating sessions when the boys are around at the master cab control panel, operating middle junction. And I will also give out the special notices, which are in this form. These are simple train card numbers that fit onto this like restaurant menu thing, just to show what special trains are running today. Each of the operators has a sheet showing the train numbers that affect him. Some, obviously the branch, are quite small lists. Others, like Yarslow, runs to several pages. The guy who sits at middle junction with the master cab control panel, he has all of the trains. He will know what's going on with the whole sequence. The signal box bells will be in operation. That might drive us mad. We haven't actually run a session yet. That's being planned. But the bells might drive us absolutely bonkers, and that idea might be left for the occasional use. We'll see how it goes. But essentially, yes, there we go. 5 operators. Hopefully, some of the boys can turn up. We can give this a go and see whether it works. So in the meantime, I'm off to distribute all the various cue cards around the layout, top up all of the boxes holding all the rotation cards so that everybody knows what they're supposed to be doing. I've got all the vans and wagons and coaches and engines all in the right place, ready to go. It's time to put the kettle on, open the bickies, invite the boys round and play trains. And that's what we're going to do for a little while yet. We might take some video while we're doing that as well. I'll show you that next time round. I'll see you soon.